there's been a massive movement across the entire country toward painted cabinets. Everybody wants painted cabinets, whether they're getting new cabinetry or whether they move into a house and there's beautiful oak cabinetry. They slobber some good old-fashioned Benjamin Moore on top of that thing and they call it a day. But there's a whole lot more to the story. So to understand the whole context, we have to back up just a little bit. Back in the day, early on in cabinetry, there were far less options. Everybody went with a wood look. They would choose their wood, and then often it was either just a clear finish or they could stain it to get a little bit more of the color they wanted and then put a clear finish on top of that. Since then, it has opened up a lot. So now people have a lot more choices. There's tons of finish options out there. The three main ones, though, are paint, stain with lacquer, and lacquer. These are the three main options, but there's some pretty stark differences in benefits, durability, and those sorts of things in all three of these options. The paint has become really, really popular recently. It has a really clean, modern look. You can choose whatever color you want from hundreds of different colors, get exactly the color you want to match your house, and it just has the brand new, clean, modern look, and a lot of people are going with the white. Then you have people who are a little bit more traditional, but they still don't want to just choose a wood. They choose their wood and then they want a little bit of a orange hue or a red hue or a brown hue, or they want it almost black. And so then they can choose a stain and put a coloring on that. And that definitely comes with a lot of benefits. You get the wood benefits, but also you get to choose your color a little bit more, but you don't get the clean look of the painted finish, and you don't get the consistency either. And then you have the natural. With the natural, your only option is to choose your wood. There's tons of different kinds of wood out there, so you still have a lot of options, but you don't get to change the color, and you just throw a finish on it. But it has a lot more benefits and is probably a better option than most people would think. So when it comes to the durability, the paint definitely shows everything more than either of these. So if you get a scratch on paint, right there, that's a big old scratch. Now that's a really big scratch. Something really bad would have to happen. But you do see things like this on a painted kitchen. That right there went through the paint, and now you have a white mark right across there. So right there, these are this kind of the same type of mark. This is on the stain, this is on the paint, and then this one, you really hardly see it. It puts a dent in the wood, obviously, because you scrape it out, but you don't see the coloring difference as much. So when it comes to touching this up, you can take paint and you can touch this up. Then you see all your brush marks. With this, you can just take a coloring, and as long as it's decently colored the same, you can take it right in here, fill that in, and you don't really ever see it. On the natural, the color of the wood is the same the whole way through. So you can often just throw a little bit of lacquer on here, or even just leave it, and you don't really notice it. So there's a big ding, and these types of things definitely happen. And as soon as you chip through that paint, everything just shows. On here, you still get the ding, but it's a lot more subtle. Now, it's a little bit hard to understand exactly how that plays out in a kitchen, but when it's in a kitchen setting, the durability of these finishes is a lot longer lasting, and you just don't see it. When you look at the kitchen, it looks a lot newer, even after 4 or 5 years. All that to say, it's getting a little bit into the weeds and a little bit more technical. But what is best for you? Should you be choosing the paint, or should you be going with something that is a lot more durable? It's really your choice at the end of the day. But I do hear some of our customers saying after 5 or 10, 15 years down the road, after they got their painted kitchen, they'll say, I kind of wish I would have went with a wood kitchen. That way it doesn't show everything as much. And the people that go with the wood kitchens, at the end of those 10, 15 years, you go back into those houses and it pretty much looks the same as it did when it was installed. If you look closer, you see those nicks and dings. In the paint, you just see it without having to look close. Everywhere on the kitchen, everywhere there's a nick, you see it. And you can touch them up, but then you see the brush marks. It just is not the same result. And I think a great option is the stain. And with these stains, you can get a lot of different colors. If you go with a maple, which is a whiter wood, you can throw a lot of different colors and get kind of the color you want. And you can go really dark or still go light, and overall get the color you want, and then you can sort of work other things around in your kitchen to still get a modern feel. The natural, you're a little bit more limited, but if you're able to get a little bit more creative and look into the woods and actually understand the woods a little bit more, there's actually a surprising amount of color option. There's red, there's more of a blacker if you go with a walnut. You can get white if you go with maple. Hickory has a lot of the variation, and you can get the rustic look. So you have a lot more options than you might think just from what your natural, normal understanding of how a kitchen will work would be. I just think it's really important for people when they're choosing their kitchen to at least consider the fact that the natural and the stain are going to look a lot better overall. And so if they can work that into their kitchen, still get the overall look they want, you're much better off with that. That being said, there's something that's a little bit hard to beat about the clean painted look, especially those whites with black hardware or the white with a black countertop. You get that clean look, and that's really, really hard to get without the paint. But you have to understand you will have some imperfections down the road. The last part of it is true that the paint finish has gotten a lot better. Now, if you go with a cheaper kitchen, you'll probably end up with a little bit of a cheaper paint, and your issues will be even worse. The paint that we use now is extremely hard, and it sticks really good. Like, even trying to ding this up, it took a little bit to figure out something that would ding it. We dropped a hammer on it, and it doesn't even go through the paint. So right here, it dented everything, but there's no wood showing whatsoever, which is actually shocking. But it doesn't quite have the resilience of this yet. So it's all things to consider, and you can talk with your custom kitchen builder and discuss with them, what do they think about the paint? How has their paint held up? Do they have pictures of some of their older jobs and some of that type of stuff, and kind of compare it? But it's definitely something to take into account. One last note, painting over kitchens. Honestly, not a super great idea. If you have a wood kitchen, in my opinion, you're better off putting in some cheap countertops that can kind of contrast a little bit, working out your backsplash to kind of contrast it, and putting in floor to match it. I think you're much better off doing something like that than painting over. If you paint over, you get a lot of chipping down the road, and overall it can make your cabinets just look cheap. With all that being said, that's pretty much the summary of the things you should be considering when you're thinking about paint versus a wood look kitchen. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments. We try to answer as many questions as we can, but it is very difficult to get around to all of the questions that come in, but we'll do what we can. And hopefully you'll stick around for the next video that we produce. That's all.